Hello again, YouTube. It's Tempest CFV. I'm back with another Buddyfight deck profile. It's not a different deck from before per se. It actually really is the same deck. But this build is slightly modified to fit a slightly different kind of playstyle. So if you haven't already, you might want to go watch my first video on Buddyfight. There's not much to it. It's just an intro, really. But it does give basically the idea of the Armor Dragon deck and kind of my playstyle. This deck's playstyle is a lot different from my last one. My last deck relied a lot on, specifically on the impact cards in the deck, Gargantua Punisher, and the idea was you to be able to consistently guard at least one, if not two, of your opponent's attacks every turn, and make sure to hit your opponent for at least 2 or 3 damage every turn, and kind of win out the grind. And this deck is similar, but not exactly the same. This deck, it plays a little bit differently. What it does, instead of trying to guard your opponent's attacks, it still tries to outgrind your opponent, but the way it does it is by attempting to clear your opponent's board state, basically, at the start, by the end of your turn, to clear their board state. So that way, the more that you commit, the less that they'll have to respond with, basically, is the idea of this deck. Because the more monsters you kill, the harder it will be for them to mount an offensive against you. So, with that in mind, the buddy for this deck is actually Rising Flare Dragon. I said in my last video that this card is kind of bad, but in this deck it's actually a key card because it's size 2 that lets you kill anything when you play it. Well, any size 2 or less when you play it. There's plenty of other cards that kill like anything else besides the size 2s. So, I don't really know what else to play as my buddy. I don't have space to run Drum Bunker in this deck, so I'm kind of just stuck running this guy. But he's not actually bad in this deck because, like I said, the playstyle is trying to kill rear guards. So for size 1s, they're the same as in my other build: 4,000 Rapier and 3 Gravehorn. They're your standard 5k and 4k vanilla beat sticks. Each of them have 2 crit, so it's really important for helping you kill off weak rear guards and for dealing early damage. And then the last size 1 is 4 Bladewing Dragon. It's a 2/2 size 1 with move, so it helps you poke for damage, and it can also be used as a defensive card. In this build, the defense is not as important so much as the early damage is, so that's why he's in here. There aren't many better size 1s with 2 crit, so yeah, might as well just play 4 of him. For your size 2, this is where it starts to get a little different. 4 Rising Flare Dragon, because you need him to kill off your opponent's things. He's not exactly super strong, but he is really helpful in this deck for helping you clear your opponent's board state. It sucks that there aren't any size 1s that let you kill rear guards. If there were, that would be really awesome. Well, size 1 armor dragons, because there's a couple, I think, Dragon Knight ones that can help you do that, but not armor dragons. So yeah. 3 Gust Charging Dragon, just like in my last build, just for the 6k vanilla and for the 3 critical. So, there's other options you can play, obviously, but I like this guy because he's the strongest 3 crit attacker. 2 Drum Bunker Barrier Breakers. This card is supposed to be Pile Bunker. Ideally, it would be in this kind of build, but this is the only card I have with Penetrate. I could even be playing 2 randomly teched Drum Bunker Dragons, but I like to Penetrate instead of the Soul Guard for this particular guy. It really sucks that he costs 2 gauge, especially because my buddy costs 2 gauge as well. So more often than not, I end up gauging this card. But I think in an ideal build, I'd play Pile Bunkers instead. And the last card is the 1 Halberd Dragon because of its defensive stats and it's a decent beat stick. So. And then for size 3s, I'm still playing the 2 Inferno Armor Dragons. Honestly, in this deck, you might even be able to bump this card up to 3. Because he's so good at clearing board state and being a really strong defender with 7k defense. So I already went over why this card was good in my last video. I'll say it again in case you haven't seen it. He's a 7/7 size 3 with 3 crit. His call cost is pay 2 gauge and put 2 cards from your deck into your soul. So when he's called, you reveal 2 cards from his soul, and if either of them is an armor dragon, you kill an opponent's monster, and then you can remove 2 from his soul to kill an opponent's monster. That's an act skill. So you can basically kill your opponent's, at least 1 if not 2 of your opponent's monsters with his skill, and then you're also committing the size 3 with 7k power and 3 critical to your field. So It's really good. I think it's personally it's really good. Um, it works for defense, works for offense. Yeah, just generally all around good card, and especially in this kind of build because you want to clear your opponent's board every turn if you can. Alright, for your spells, you got 4 Green Dragon Shield, 4 the Nullify. Good defensive card. I kind of feel like in this deck with less defensive cards like Monk or Dragon, and I'm also not playing Dragonic Formation. Definitely need to play your 8 Nullifies. I'm also playing 4 the Blue Dragon Shield. 4 Dragoenergy. This build's not as important as it was in my last build, but it's still really clutch. Like you can play this if you have like no weapon and you have Rising Flare in the center. Rising Flare is deceptive because he's a good card for killing your opponent's stuff, but he has really poor stats. He's only a 5/4 with 2 crit, so it's really easy for your opponents like size 1 to swing into it, and then you can just Dragoenergy with him and kill their stuff. So I feel like playing 4 is kind of necessary. 2 Dragonic Thunder. This card is interesting. When you use it, you pay 1 gauge, and then it's a counter. It lets you destroy any size 1 on the board. So, really helpful against most decks. Most decks play size 1s. Basically, this card boils down to, it's another like counter card. Like last time I was playing, my last build I was playing Dragonic Formation. It's basically just ends up being another Nullify, just like the Dragoenergy. Same thing with this. It's the another Nullify. The only difference is it costs a gauge to play, but it really fits the deck's playstyle of trying to clear board state. So it's really good. 2 Dragonic Charge, help you build gauge. This is really important in this deck, especially with my Penetrator costing 2 gauge to play. So not really much to say there. Dragonic Grimoire at 2. In this build, I find I don't really need it as much as in my other build, but it's still good to have the 2 of. I honestly, the reason I'm putting it in is because it's really easy to side out game 2 if I find that I don't need it. There's a bunch of other extra goodies I have in my side deck that I can easily take this card out and put in instead. That really help with the attrition game. Alright, last is the items and impacts. The items are 2 Dragoknuckle for helping you build gauge. It's not as important in this deck, so you don't actually need to run more than 2 in this particular build. In my other Armored Dragon deck, yes, definitely need to play 4, but in this one it's not as important, so not a huge deal if it's only 2 of it. And then 4 Dragobreach. This is personal preference to play the 4, but it is a 5k attacker with 3 crit, and it only costs 1 gauge and 1 life to play. So it's a lot better than Dragobreach in terms of cost, and it's got the same stats. So I would play 4 as weapon in this deck because it really helps you be able to swing at rear guards and such. Alright, now for my impact card. Now, there are a bunch of options you can play with this deck. Obviously, the best impact for this deck is going to be Gargantua Punisher. Right now, I'm playing this card, Dragon's Drake Arch Dragonic Kaiser Nova. With this card, what you do is you pay 4 gauge, and then during your final phase, you destroy all of your opponent's size 2 or lower monsters, and then deal your opponent 2 damage. It's not super good. Honestly, for paying 4 gauge, you're probably not going to be doing much with this card unless your opponent has 2 or more monsters. So it's not terrible. But I think Gargantua Punisher might be better. I'm testing this right now to see if it's actually useful for board clearing. If there are times when, like I said, I'm playing 6 weapons too, so there might be times where Gargantua is actually better. But like I said, only time will tell. And any impact really works in this deck because it's an attrition deck. You can easily kill off your opponent's cards and just outgrind them and then kill them with your impact cards, basically. So. The sideboard is, like I said before, there's a bunch of cards in here that can be easily sided out. I can even side out the Trumbunker Dragon Barrier Breakers if I need to for more spells. The spells are 2 Wrath of Dragon. Basically, it's a stronger Dragoenergy if you need to have extra defense. I like this card a lot. I don't main it because I think Dragoenergy is a better card. It's a more useful card because of the counterattack. But against stronger decks like Danger World, this card is really helpful for stopping them. And if you have like something like Bladewing Dragon and you're moving it to the center, this card's going to be do a better job of saving it than Dragoenergy will. 2 Dragonic Formation. Like I said, I was maining this in my other build. I'm playing it in this one because I don't actually have anything that uses Soul Guard. Basically, the only time I would use this is against a more aggressive deck, and only because it lets me move Inferno Armor Dragon from a left zone to a center zone. Honestly, there's not really anything better I can play here, so I'm just playing this. I could play like Dragon Breath or something, but it's just kind of a slow card. So Two Dragon Crush, pay 2 gauge, destroy your opponent's equipment. This card is necessary against annoying decks like Magic World and Dragon World that have really good weapons and you just feel like you have to kill them. This card is really good to have. And then, like I said, it's easy to set up Dragonic Grimoire for this shit. So, 2 Day of the Dragon. This card lets you pay 1 gauge and kill all of your opponent's monsters, but then you can only attack with your weapon that turn. So, like I said, this card is also situational. All things considered, if I wasn't playing this card, I'd probably be maining this and Gargantua Punisher, and then side the Dragonic Thunder instead, because this card is actually really good for wiping board state. But I already have a card that wipes board state. The only problem is it costs 4 gauge, whereas it only costs 1. So normally I use this card in tandem with a weapon or like a Rising Flow Dragon to help me like push really hard in a turn. Whereas this card is better in a longer game because you can just use it and then say, okay, I'm going to swing with my weapon and then I'm going to pass. Because then you're going to minus your opponent too, and it didn't cost you anything. You just played the card and you minus the gauge. It's no big deal. So, I'm still testing this card, like I said, so I'll keep you updated. And then the last card is 2 Dragoanthem. This is one of my favorite side cards right now because of Danger World and Katana World. Basically, against those decks, you'll have your opponent's gonna have a monster in the center pretty often. Usually a monster with double attack or soul guard. So what you can do with this card is he can't attack the left or right, but he has double attack and he's a 5k attacker. So usually you can use this card to take out 2 of your opponent's soul, which is really helpful in a deck like this. Normally I don't need it as much in this deck because I have so much removal already, but in the event that I do need more removal, this card is pretty clutch. So that's basically it for the deck. It's a little bit different from the other dragon deck, like I said. It's more about retiring your opponent's stuff and making sure that you do at least like 4 damage to them every turn, and make sure that by the end of their turn they okay, well, maybe not by the end of the turn. By the start of your attack phase, they have no board state, basically. So whether that means playing counter spells on their turn, or like Dragoenergies and Dragonic Thunders, or whether that means playing Rising Flow Dragon on your turn, or even Inferno Armor Dragon, do what you can to make sure that they minus themselves. Make sure you can do whatever you can to kill your opponent's monsters. Be careful managing your gauge with this deck. That's basically the only thing, is just manage your gauge properly. And yeah. If anyone has any questions, comments, or suggestions, be sure to comment below. Subscribe if you want to see more Vanguard and Buddyfight. And yeah, I'll see you next time.